Welcome back, everyone. What a forum. 3 days and so many powerful voices, so many generous stories, so many leadership truths that did not just sound good in theory, but landed in my body. And if I had to summarize the entire Joy Led Leadership Forum in one sentence, it would be this. Joy led leadership is not about becoming a happier leader. It is about becoming a more whole, regulated, honest, connected, and courageous one. This is what came through again and again. This forum was never about fluffy joy. It was never about smiling harder. It was never about pretending everything is fine when the house is on fire and someone is handing you a branded water bottle. This was about leadership that refuses to keep rewarding burnout. Leadership that stops confusing exhaustion with excellence. Leadership that creates room for truth, dignity, courage, clarity, connection, purpose, and actual human capacity. And through the forum, everything kept circling back to the 4 pillars of joy-led leadership. Energy over endurance, regulation over urgency, integration over compartmentalization, and community over competition. So I want to pull the threads together through those 4 pillars, because what happened over these 3 days was not just a collection of beautiful conversations. It was a blueprint. It was a new leadership architecture. It was a reminder that joy is not the reward for surviving leadership. Joy is the infrastructure that allows us to lead differently. So let's begin with that first pillar. Pillar 1, energy over endurance. I like to talk about joy. This pillar asks us an uncomfortable question. What if endurance is not the goal? For so many leaders, especially women, endurance has been celebrated as proof of commitment. She can handle it. She always shows up. She never drops the ball. She keeps going. She pushes through. She makes it work. And let's be honest, many of us built entire identities around being able to endure. But throughout the forum, speaker after speaker reminded us that endurance might be impressive, but it is certainly not sustainable. And it's definitely not the same as power. Celeste Warren, who started us off, brought us into the importance of changing systems, not just by asking individuals to carry more weight inside of broken ones. Her work reminded us that leadership is not simply about helping people be more resilient inside environments that keep depleting them. It is about having the courage to examine the structures, policies, cultures, and patterns that determine who gets access, who gets opportunity, who gets supported, and who is just expected to keep proving themselves. That's energy over endurance. Because joy-led leadership does not ask people to become better at surviving harm. It asks leaders to build systems where more people can actually thrive. Kate Wade brought this home in a deeply personal and practical way by speaking to women who have spent years shrinking, spiraling, second-guessing, and shaping themselves around what they think leadership wants from them. Her work with senior women in career transition is a direct challenge to endurance culture. Because how many brilliant women have been taught to endure roles that no longer fit? Endure environments that do not value them. Endure job searches that make them question everything that they know about themselves. Kate reminded us that joy-led leadership includes reclaiming our own value. Not performing for permission, not over-explaining our worth, not twisting ourselves into more acceptable shapes. Energy over endurance means we can stop asking, how much more can I take? And we start asking, what is actually aligned with who I am now? Carrie Cook brought this pillar into the world of money, strategy, and financial leadership. And I loved this because money is one of those places where endurance often hides in plain sight. Business owners endure confusion. They endure shame. They endure avoidance. They endure the feeling that they should understand their numbers, but don't even know where to start. Carrie reminded us that financial clarity is not just about spreadsheets. It is about power. It is about agency. It is about making better decisions because you're no longer leading from a fog. That's joy-led leadership. Energy over endurance says, I do not have to keep white knuckling my way through parts of leadership that I have been avoiding. I can get support. I can get clarity. I can build systems that help me lead with more confidence. Brendan Thompson also spoke directly to this pillar by challenging the pressure-driven, that's his words, pressure-driven model of performance. His message reminded us that high performance does not require us to abandon our humanity. In fact, the more disconnected we become from what makes us human, the more brittle our leadership becomes. And that's one of the big takeaways from the entire forum. Endurance may get you through the day, but joy creates the capacity to lead for the long haul. Not fake joy, not forced joy, not bumper sticker joy, real joy. The kind that reconnects you to meaning. The kind that reminds you why the work matters. The kind that gives you enough breath in your body to make better decisions. Energy over endurance is not about doing less because we are weak. It's about building leadership that does not require self-abandonment as the entry fee. Whew. That one alone could be the whole forum. But then we moved to the second pillar, pillar number 2, regulation over urgency. This is a pillar where the nervous system entered the chat and took over the microphone, right? Because urgency is everywhere. Urgency says, answer faster, decide faster, react faster, prove faster, fix faster, move faster. Do not pause. Do not breathe. Do not feel. Just go. But joy-led leadership asks, what decisions become possible when leaders are regulated enough to tell the truth? This theme showed up again and again and again. Gina Lemon's work around human resources, people practices, and healthier workplaces reminded us that organizations are not just strategy machines. They are human systems. And human systems cannot thrive when everyone is operating from chronic urgency, fear, confusion, or emotional depletion. Gina invited us to think about leadership as relational, courageous, and deeply human, not transactional, not performative, not just policy stacked on top of policy. Regulation over urgency says people need clarity, trust, communication, and capacity, not just another initiative shoved into an already overflowing calendar. Dr. Sunige Nzenge, or Sunny, brought us a beautiful lens around learning, technology, and possibility. His work invited us to imagine what becomes possible when we use technology with purpose instead of panic. That matters. Because urgency often makes leaders chase every new tool, platform, trend, or shiny object without asking whether it actually serves the people. Joy-led leadership slows us down enough to ask better questions. What are we trying to create? Who are we serving? What learning becomes possible? What did we once think was impossible that may be now within reach? That's regulation. It's not stagnation. It's not slowness for the sake of slowness. It is grounded movement. Nicole Matuzanek also helped us deepen this theme by bringing us back into the inner work of leadership. Her session reminded us that the state of the leader matters. The way we carry stress, fear, identity, expectation, and pressure shapes how we show up in rooms, conversations, conflict, and decision-making. And this is one of the biggest lies urgency tells us. It says our internal state is irrelevant as long as we keep producing. But it certainly is not relevant. A dysregulated leader creates dysregulated rooms. A grounded leader creates more possibility. A self-aware leader can respond instead of react. A regulated leader can hold complexity without immediately trying to control it. That matters. Jackie Payne brought a powerful and urgent but deeply grounded conversation into this pillar as well. Her work around civic engagement, democracy, moderate women, behavioral psychology, neuroscience, and cultural programming reminded us that leadership in a divided world requires more than outrage. It requires understanding. It requires strategy. It requires maybe some laughter. It does require emotional intelligence. It requires the ability to reach people where they are, not where they wish they were. And this is regulation over urgency. Because urgency wants to shout. Regulation helps us communicate, helps us talk. Urgency wants to shame people into action. Regulation helps us understand what actually moves people. Urgency wants instant results. Regulation builds movements that last. This was such an important thread throughout the entire form, because the future of leadership will not belong to the people who can react the fastest. The future of leadership will belong to the people who can stay grounded enough to lead through complexity. That's not soft. That is strategic. That is joy-led. Let's move on to number 3. Pillar number 3, integration over compartmentalization. This pillar may be one of the most personal, because compartmentalization has been sold to leaders as professionalism. Leave your personal life at the door. Don't bring your emotions. Don't bring your grief. Don't bring your problems into the room. Don't bring your body into the room. Don't bring your story into this room. Do not bring your faith, your values, your tenderness, your uncertainty, your humanity into the room. Leave it at the door. But we want, just bring your polished version. Just bring the title, the resume, the talking points, the armor. Bring the pretty stuff into the room. But the form kept showing us something different. The leaders who moved us the most were not the ones surrounded or who sounded the most polished. The leaders who moved us, they were the ones who sounded the most integrated. Megan Jasper's story as the CEO of Sub Pop Records was such a brilliant example of this. Her leadership journey is rooted in culture, creativity, wit, relationships, and deep commitment to artists and community. She reminded us that leadership is not just about managing an organization. It's about shaping a culture that people can feel. And culture is not built by compartmentalized humans or robotic humans. Culture is built by leaders who know what they value, who understand what makes a place come alive, who can hold both business and humanity, who can make room for creativity without crushing it under corporate sameness. Cecilia Stanton Adams brought integration into the heart of workplace culture. Her work reminds us that people are not just categories or checkboxes or organizational problems to solve. People bring lived experience, identity, history, dignity, complexity, and brilliance into the workplace. Integration over compartmentalization means we stop pretending culture work is separate from business strategy. It's not. It is not. Culture is strategy. Dignity is strategy. Inclusion is strategy. Human-centered leadership is strategy. Cheryl Raphael Whittaker took this pillar straight into the center of leadership transformation. Her work around joy as an operating system, not a reward, aligned so beautifully with the heartbeat of the entire forum. Cheryl reminded us that joy is not something that we sprinkle on top after the real work is done. Joy is the inner work. Joy is the structural shift. Joy is the leadership shift. And I love her phrase, joy is my COO. Joy is my COO is such a powerful invitation because it reframes joy as operational, not ornamental. Joy is not the confetti at the beginning or the end of the meeting. Joy can be part of how we decide, part of how we lead, how we communicate, how we build, how we measure success, how we come back to ourselves. And then the day 3 leadership panel with Erin Martinson, KT Trewin, and Dr. Jean Kwam brought such wisdom, warmth, and depth into this pillar. Erin brought the lens of spiritual direction, coaching, grief, vocation, transition, and whole person leadership. She reminded us that leadership is not only professional, it is deeply human and often deeply spiritual. Leaders move through seasons. They face endings. They discern what's next. They carry grief, hope, uncertainty, and calling. KT brought the power of communication, connection, clarity, and shared purpose. Her work reminded us that leadership becomes more joyful and effective when people understand the story that they are part of. Strategy matters, but if they cannot feel it, connect to it, or see themselves inside it, it stays flat. And then Dr. Jean Kwam brought the perspective of a seasoned leader, educator, mother, grandmother, and cancer survivor. Her wisdom reminded us that leadership is shaped by a whole life, not just titles, not just achievements, not just institutional roles, a whole life. That is integration over compartmentalization. The point is not to overshare everything everywhere. The point is to stop serving ourselves into or severing ourselves into pieces in order to be seen as legitimate. Joy-led leadership says, bring your wisdom, bring your values, bring your story, bring your body, bring your clarity, bring your lived experience, bring your humanity. Not because leadership should become one giant group therapy session with a budget spreadsheet or budget blueprint, thanks, Carrie, but because fragmented leaders create fragmented systems. Integrated leaders create trust. Let's move to 4. Pillar number 4, community over competition. Finally, the 4th pillar. We're almost there. We're almost there. We've almost got this whole 3 days wrapped up. This may have been the most obvious theme of the entire forum because the forum itself was living proof of it. A room full of leaders, a collection of different industries, countries, backgrounds, stories, and expertise. People could have been kept separate. People really who could have stayed home, stayed in their own lanes. People who could have treated leadership as a solo performance and not wanted to collaborate. But instead, they said yes. They said yes to joy and they came together. And that's the point. Joy-led leadership is not meant to be practiced in isolation. Celeste's systems work, Kate's career strategy, Gina's transformation, Megan's culture building, Carrie's financial clarity, Brendan's human performance, Sunny's learning innovation, Cecilia's workplace culture expertise, Nicole's inner leadership lens, Jackie's democracy and civic engagement, Cheryl's joy operating system, and the wisdom from Erin, KT, and Dean Jean all pointed toward the same truth. We are not meant to do this alone. We are definitely not meant to heal broken leadership systems alone. Community over competition means we stop treating other powerful leaders, especially other women, as threats. We stop believing that there's only one seat, one microphone, one opportunity, one room, one spotlight. That old model is tired. Sometimes it's hard to get there, but that old model is tired. And frankly, she might need a nap and a green smoothie. Joy-led leadership says, your power does not diminish mine. Your absolute brilliance does not erase mine. Your voice does not threaten mine. Your success can expand what is possible for all of us. That's not naive. That is movement building. And Jackie's work especially reminded us that movements are not built by isolated people screaming into the void. They are built through connection, repetition, trust, behavior change, culture, and shared action. Cheryl reminded us that joy can indeed become an operating system. Gina reminded us that organizations are relational. KT reminded us that shared purpose has to be communicated. Erin reminded us that we need spaces of safety and discernment. Jean reminded us that the wisdom accumulates across life. Megan reminded us that a culture can be built with creativity, courage, and care. This entire forum was a living example of community over competition. And that's why this work matters so much. That's why this work matters to me so much. Because the old leadership model just keeps telling us to be impressive. Joy-led leadership invites us to be connected. The old model says, protect your power. Joy-led leadership says, circulate it. The old model says, compete for the room. Joy-led leadership says, let's build a room worth being in together. So where does this leave all of us? It leaves us with a choice. We can keep leading through endurance, urgency, compartmentalization, and competition. We know that model. Many of us were trained in it. Many of us were rewarded by it. Many of us got very, very good at it. But we also know the cost. Burned out leaders, disconnected teams, performative culture, decision fatigue, bodies that are tired, bodies that are screaming, rooms where people are present but are not alive, organizations that are productive but not well. Or we can choose something different together. We can choose energy over endurance. Not because the hard things disappear, but because we refuse to glorify depletion. We can choose regulation over urgency. Not because speed never matters, but because grounded leaders make better decisions. We can choose integration over compartmentalization. Not because every room needs every detail, they certainly don't, but because wholeness creates trust. We can choose community over competition. Not because ambition is wrong, but because collective power can build what isolated performance never will. That is joy-led leadership. It's not soft. It's not fluffy. It's not a cute little leadership accessory. It is a new way to build capacity, a new way to define power, a new way to hold success, a new way to lead without leaving ourselves behind. And after these 3 days of this forum and these beautiful people who shared, I am more convinced than ever. Joy is not the reward. Joy is the strategy that makes sustainable leadership possible. So to every speaker, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. To every person who showed up live or watched the replays, commented, reflected, invited someone, or let these conversations shift something inside of you. Thank you. And to every leader listening to this right now, you do not need to lead from depletion. You do not have to perform your way into belonging. You do not have to confuse urgency with importance. You do not have to compete your way into impact. There is another way, and we are building it together. Joy is the strategy. Use it and have fun. Live well. Enjoy.